Right. So, welcome everybody to the seventh session of Write It Right. Um, I would like to welcome everyone who just joined us. I see that we have new faces here, and some of you have attended for the first time or are attending for the first time. So, we will go through what be doing uh, since the beginning. We were taking or studying techniques of writing. It includes how to write sentences, paragraphs, and essays. We have covered a bit of the designed curriculum for this course, and this course is designed for intermediate and upper intermediate students. Plus, teachers are welcome to attend because they might get some techniques to help them teach writing in class. Okay. If you have any questions throughout the course, throughout the class, you can type the questions in the chat. Okay. And if you wanted to speak up, you can raise your hand and then we will be given a permission to talk. Okay. Make sure that your mics are muted so we don't disturb the class and we don't disturb other people. Okay. Now, this is our seventh session, and we are talking today about essay types. We've covered a bit of writing on, or like techniques of writing essays and paragraphs. So today, as you guys know, that we need to have a simple outline for any essay we write, and this is a simple outline, and there is a detailed outline. In the simple outline, we just include what is needed to be in the essay. So we have introduction, we have body paragraphs, and we have conclusion. In the introduction, we have hook, background information, and a thesis statement. And we talked in detail about how to write each of these. If you're new, you can go back and check the old videos and you'll find details on how to write a good hook, how to write background information, and how to write thesis statement. Okay. Also, we mentioned that for each body paragraph, we need to have a topic sentence, supporting sentences, and a concluding or transitioning sentence. And this was our last class. We talked about how to write a paragraph, or technically how to write a body paragraph. Okay. We move from one paragraph to the other till we reach our conclusion. And in the conclusion, we need to summarize the main points of the essay. Plus, we need to give our opinion, suggestion, or recommendation if we have any. This is another sample, or it's a sample of the detailed outline. So in the simple outline, as we mentioned, we just mentioned titles of what is needed to be added to the writing. But here in the detailed, we write these down. So this will be my hook if we're talking about junk food. How many times do you eat fast food or junk food in a week? Then we write background information about the topic, which is fast food is a byproduct, why it is a byproduct of modern life now. And then we will be writing our thesis statement. And the thesis statement, as we mentioned, it is the general statement that mentions everything that will be discussed in the body paragraphs. Okay. And here in this example, we have, although fast food makes our life convenient, it has several negative effects. So we'll be looking at the several negative effects. In body paragraph 1, we mentioned our topic sentence will be fast food negatively impacts health. This means that the whole paragraph will be looking at the negative consequences of eating fast food on our bodies. Okay, so these are supporting sentences, how sodium affects our body and how it causes some headaches or other disease. Then we conclude with not only our physical well-being, but also our mental health will be affected by that. And this is considered to be a transitioning sentence because it's taking us from this negative impact on the body to the negative impact on the mind, which is mental health. Then in the second body paragraph, we'll be writing, in addition to the physical issues, fast food also negatively impacts our mental health. And we give examples of these. Okay, so if you can just look here and see that there is a topic sentence and then there are supporting sentences or examples, and these can be statistics or it can be anecdotes or stories of something that really happened, and then we have a concluding sentence for each body paragraph. We reach now our conclusion, which is a summary of the main points, which is physical, mental issues are byproducts of consuming fast food, and then we give our recommendations here. It's highly recommended that we avoid this altogether. Okay. We talked also about the paragraph writing last time, or paragraph structure last time, and we mentioned that a paragraph is made of a topic sentence, supporting sentences, and a concluding sentence. And we mentioned that the topic sentence of a paragraph is a sentence that indicates in general way the idea of the paragraph. So in general, we look at the paragraph as a building block of an essay. So we have an essay and we wanted to build it up. So we pick one point or one idea, and then we write a paragraph about this point. We start by a topic sentence, we support our ideas with examples or statistics, and then we conclude by a sentence. Now we're done with one building block. Then we move to another building block. There is a question, when can we paragraph? We can paragraph here when we finish our thought. So you're thinking of some reasons or three reasons of why we should avoid drugs. The first reason, it harms our health. So you finished everything about harming our health. Now you need to move to another point, which is maybe it's harmful for the community in general. Okay, so this is just a brief definition of what is a paragraph and when we can paragraph or move to a different idea. Generally, here looking at the topic sentence, which is the main component or the first component of the paragraph structure, it's generally occurs at the beginning of the paragraph. And we mentioned also, or we discussed, and we had some exercises last time, that we can find a topic sentence in the middle of the paragraph or sometimes at the end of the paragraph. Here are some more details about topic sentence. A topic sentence, as we mentioned, would be general enough to express the paragraph's overall subject, but it can also be specific enough that the reader can understand the main subject and the point. So any topic sentence should be made of a topic and the controlling idea. A topic is what I'm writing about, and the controlling idea, what I wanted to tell our reader or my readers about. So if you look at this example here, Victoria is a wonderful city to visit. This is my topic. Why? This will be my controlling idea, because it has an ideal location, beautiful gardens, and interesting things to do. We also did the activity of where can we find the topic sentence in these, and this is only just to show you that here, the best trip my family ever took was to New Orleans, Louisiana. This is my topic sentence. How can I know? Because everything that will come after this topic sentence is related to it. So it's a kind of explanation or discussion or giving examples to this topic. In the second paragraph, we found that the topic sentence is in the middle here. We mentioned this because it's important. We mentioned that this is the topic sentence because the first sentence is not general enough and it's not giving me a controlling idea of the topic, while the last one here, it's a kind of explanation to it. But the second sentence has the controlling idea of the paragraph. It's important to completely wash any utensils before using them. Why? Here, you'll give you some examples or explanation in the first and the last sentence. We move to the supporting sentences, and we mentioned that supporting sentences is the second section of the paragraph, and you need to include, develop the main idea here by giving examples or statistics or details. And we mentioned also that there are different types of support. You can give it by giving example or illustrations, cite data from facts, statistics, or evidence. You can examine testimonies that people say in a court maybe, or in the news. You could also use an anecdote or something that a short story that happened to you or happened to somebody else. You can define the term in the paragraph if it is not clear enough, or you can also compare and contrast, and this happens usually in the compare and contrast essays. You can evaluate cause and reasons, which is cause and effect essays, and you can examine effects or consequences in the same type of topic of essays. And you can also analyze the topic in analytical essay, and you can describe the topic in a descriptive essay. And finally, you can offer a chronological or a chronology of an event, which is the historical order of events. If you're writing about a topic that needs a kind of background, historical background. Okay. I'll be doing everything today on my own. So if you guys don't mind, I'll be just admitting some people back and forth. So if you have any question, you can type it. I hope that that this doesn't interrupt our class. Moving on, we mentioned that the last part of a paragraph is a concluding or transitioning sentence. And even if it is not the last paragraph of your essay, you need to conclude it with a sentence. Okay. And we mentioned that the last sentence of a paragraph ends this idea. It doesn't have anything to do with the coming paragraph unless it is a transitioning sentence. So you can either conclude your main idea by mentioning why this is correct, why your argument is correct, or you just wrap up the notion here, or you can use the last sentence to move you or to make your ideas connected, the first idea and the second idea. And we mentioned this here when we were talking about the effects of fast food. We mentioned that it's not only our bodies that are affected, but also our minds are affected. So I as a reader, I expect that I read about how our minds are affected. And we gave an example here. I'll just go quickly through it. It says your goal must be something that you can possibly do. You may not be able to lose 100 pounds, buy a bank, or have 10 children. If your goal seems out of reach, think of them as possible long-term goals and set something more achievable as a short or moderate term goal. Lose 10 pounds, save some money, or start dating. So this last sentence concludes the whole paragraph. So it just gives you bits and pieces about the information here. It's a kind of wrap up to the information in this paragraph. Okay. If you guys have any question, you can go ahead and type it in the chat box. If this is your first session and you think that speaking in English is hard for you, you can text me any question you have, even in Arabic, and I'll explain it. Okay. I just try to keep speaking in English most of the class or all of the class most of the time because it will be more helpful for you to learn and practice listening as well. All right. Moving on, these are some things that you need to include or not include in your transitioning sentence. So you need to restate the topic sentence using synonyms. So you don't use the same topic sentence. If I say fast food is bad for your health, I shouldn't say fast food is bad for your health in the conclusion. So I could change it. So fast food can be junk food and health can be body, maybe. So you can change it. Instead of fast food is bad for your health, you could say that junk food has negative impact on your body. Okay. Also restate the topic sentence using different kind of sentences. And we talked about simple sentence and compound sentence. And sometimes you just need to reverse it, or sometimes you just need to change it from active to passive. So we could say that fast food affects our bodies in the topic sentence, and then in the conclusion we could say that our bodies are negatively impacted by junk food. So you change it, the type of the sentence from active to passive, and that's perfectly fine, and that shows the writer that you are mastering your sentences. Then you wrap again, these are the things that you need to do. You wrap up your paragraph, so this will be the last sentence. Give your reader the impression that this is the last sentence and there is no more sentences. So you don't need to add new piece of information at the end. You need also to consider using transitioning words to signify the end of your paragraph. One of them is indeed, in fact, in summary, maybe you can use that. You can use these. What to avoid here is you don't need to copy exact wording from the topic sentence. Also, you need to include it. You can't or you shouldn't include a new topic. And also, don't focus on a small idea. The last sentence is a general overview, a wrap up. So you're summarizing all the notions or the ideas you mentioned in the last sentence. Don't start the sentence with "and now you know" or "that I learned what that's what I learned," or "here is why so and so happens." So avoid these because this doesn't show that you're mastering your writing. Okay, so I have got a quick question. I need to do it. to read it. Sorry. All right. So we can talk about that after, if you don't mind, Tariq. Okay. Um, so the main characteristic of a well-written paragraph. We mentioned these last time, and we talked about them. We mentioned that a unity is very important. You need to have a unity. So everything that is in your paragraph is about one piece or central idea. You don't need to write different ideas in one paragraph. Uh, Also, you need to have a coherent paragraph. And we had a very interesting video last time about a coherent paragraph. And I'd like to ask you guys here, those who attended last session, please type in the chat box. Um, yeah, I'll answer your question in a minute. Type in the chat box what makes or how can we make our paragraph coherent. Please type this in the chat box for those who attended last session. And let's discuss it for a bit. So Jihan, I'll share the link of the group after this session. Okay. Or you can privately text me on Telegram as well. Then, um, okay, can we use generally speaking to conclude? Yeah, you can use generally speaking, comma, then you mention your statement. Again, there is for generally speaking, yes, you can use it. Okay, but it also depends on the type of the essay you're writing. If you're writing a formal essay for a research paper in the university and the professor is very strict about being formal, you wouldn't accept generally speaking. But you would accept the word, the expressions, in fact, indeed. Okay. In conclusion, this would be also great for them. Okay, but you can definitely use general speaking at the end. Connecting sentences, connecting words. Yes, you need to use connecting words. That's right. This is the answer for coherent paragraph. That's right. Using connecting words is very important. That makes our paragraphs coherent. You should have an opening statement. The paragraph should have an opening statement. Yeah, the opening statement here, Moonlight, is your topic sentence. So you start the paragraph with a topic sentence that tells the reader what you will be writing about. Okay. Um, when there is a flow of ideas, that's perfect. That's perfectly correct and read when there is a flow of ideas. So the ideas are fluent, if you can say, fluent ideas, like moving from one idea to the other fluently. Coherent sentences join together, but cohesion paragraphs are connected. Manan, that's correct. You know, I because I don't want to confuse you, I'll play the video of last time because it's very interesting and very helpful. And I'd like you to take notes of what the video will discuss. Okay, the ideas are connected. That's right. You display the main ideas of the paragraph. Let's say three statement expressing ideas. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Moonlight, but if you can put your answer together, it will be easier for me by ordering the ideas of the paragraph, putting them in a chronological order or in a logical order. Maybe that's also correct, Hala. Then you talk about each idea in detail. Okay, so if you want, please, if you can, please put your whole answer together, Moonlight, and then I can read it as a whole. The all the ideas be contacted. It's so connected here. Which video? I'll play the video now of cohesion versus coherent. When can we say that this paragraph is coherent, or when can we say that this paragraph is cohesion? Okay, coherent and cohesive. Sorry. You sum up the ideas. Yeah, you're talking about now. Are you talking, Moonlight? Are you talking about the essay or the paragraph? Okay, I'll just end this sharing here, and let's go to watch this video together. Okay, I'll just close this again. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I just need to do something very important quickly about. Okay, right. We are here. Okay, we got it here. Let's share it with all the sound. Yeah, the answer for your question is right here, Jihan, in this video. Please take notes of what this video will mention. It's very interesting and very important. The difference between cohesion and coherence. Okay, and uh, yeah, okay, let's watch it together.
Today I want to talk about two important things, cohesion and coherence. First of all, let's define our terms. Cohesion is said to be the glue that holds a paragraph together. In other words, if a paragraph has good cohesion, then we say the ideas flow from one sentence to another sentence smoothly. They're connected, if you would. The end of one sentence is related to the beginning of the next sentence. When we talk about coherence, we are talking about how clear and how logical the ideas are. In other words, how well can a reader understand each sentence and how it relates to the other sentences and how it relates to the main idea. Basically, a passage has cohesion and coherence when it flows smoothly and it makes sense. So when a paragraph is choppy or the ideas are hard to follow, it's because it's not cohesive. And likewise, when a paragraph is hard to understand or is somewhat confusing, we say it is not coherent. Let's look more closely now on how to develop cohesion and coherence in our passages. Let's look at these two passages. Which one has better cohesion? When cats are hungry, they rub on your leg and demand immediate attention. However, when they are satisfied, they find a quiet place and sleep. Number two, when cats are hungry, they are satisfied. So which passage is easier to read, the first one or the second? The first passage is more cohesive because the ideas in the first sentence flow smoothly to the second sentence. Cats are first satisfied, and then they find a quiet place to sleep. In the second passage, the last sentence it comes to us almost as new information. Let's look now at another set of passages and ask the same question. Which one is more cohesive? Thousands of people visit Yosemite National Park each year. They come to experience the natural beauties of the magnificent rock cliffs and to enjoy the great outdoors. The rock cliffs pose a great danger from rock slides. Passage number two. Thousands of people visit Yosemite National Park each year. They come to experience the natural beauties of the magnificent rock cliffs and to enjoy the great outdoors. However, what they do not realize is that as beautiful as they are, these rock cliffs also pose a great danger from rock slides. So which passage is easier to read, the first one or the second one? The second passage tends to flow smoother because the last sentence doesn't redirect our attention to the rock cliffs like the first one does. Let's move on to coherence now. A passage can be cohesive, but it may not be coherent. In order for a passage to be coherent, readers first need to clearly identify the topic of each sentence, and then they need to be able to recognize how the sentence topics connect to each other and to the main idea of the passage. Let's look at this passage. It starts off well. We can even say it is cohesive, but it doesn't have coherence. Apple computers have become increasingly popular, especially in educational and media circles. With their user-friendly no bells and wheel styles, they soon become a standard. Apple computers offer virtually an endless resource to simple yet effective software. Software is key to building success in a global world. When the world became globalized, many difficult issues began to emerge. The passage is rather difficult to read. It begins by telling us how Apple computers became popular, but it ends with global issues. The passage seems to flow, but the topics in each sentence are really not connected to each other, nor are they connected to the main idea. Let's look now at a coherent passage, written by a Dr. Branschik, published in the Psychology Today magazine. Your goal must be something that you can possibly do. You may not be able to lose 100 pounds, buy a bank, or have 10 children. If your goals seem out of reach, think of them as possible long-term goals and set something more achievable as a short or moderate-term goal. Lose 10 pounds, save some money, or start dating. So we ask the question, is the passage cohesive? We have to say yes. Each sentence links to the one before it and links to the one after it. It's easy to read. Is the passage coherent? Again, we have to say yes. We are able to identify the topic in each sentence, and each sentence supports the main idea.
Right. I hope this is helpful. If you guys have any question or if you have any comment, please type it in the chat box. All right. And for those who wanted to keep track of this video, here is the link. I'll type that. Okay. So to everyone here, this is the link of this video. We'll just watch it. Back to our presentation. Okay. We covered that already. And conclusion transitioning, we talked about. So today we will be discussing the types, different types of essay. Okay, and there are thousands and thousands of types of essays, but we'll be focusing on the most important or the most common essay types. Okay, can you hear me well? If you can't hear me well, please type no. So I raise my voice because I think it's noisy around me. Okay, so now looking at the types of essays we'll be discussing, we will discuss the argumentative essay and the expository essay, the narrative essay, and the descriptive essay. Thank you. Perfect. Now, usually when a professor or a teacher asks you to write an argumentative essay, they wanted to look at these. They wanted to look at your ability to form an opinion and also your ability to build an. 1 second, sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to raise it as much as I can. Can you hear it now? Is it good now, Amina? Okay. All right. So when a teacher or a professor asks you to write an essay, argumentative essay, they wanted to test that you can or you're able to form an opinion, okay, via research. So, for example, is using the social media harmful or useful for kids? Okay, we would think, oh, it's harmful. Go ahead and write about it. But you need to get some evidence of that. You need to, do some research before you can write an argument about that. Okay. Do you also want to see that you can build an evidence-based argument, not only because you think so? And here is an example of an argumentative essay that you might be asked to write. Okay, has the rise of internet had a positive or negative impact on education? Can you think of thinking? What do you think of that? Is it positive or negative? Just type in the chat box if you think it's negative, and if you think it's positive, type in the chat box. And if you think it's negative, tell me why. 3 reasons why it's negative. Why it is negative that we are using technology now in education. It's negative because 1, 2, 3, or it's positive because 1, 2, 3. Can you type this in the chat box, please? Still waiting. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So the read here started. She said it's positive because Number one, it's easily accessible at any time, technology. Muhammad Said said it's positive because it made education easy or easier. Okay, this is one reason. I just wanted three reasons at least to support your argument. When you think, they use the rule of three, 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 three. Okay, if you think of positive, think of three positives, or if you think of negative, think of three negatives. Okay, so we have Manal here, and she said it's positive because it's interesting using because of using interesting activities as videos and games. That's right. Hala says I think it has a double face according it to its use. Perfect. We're looking at its use for education, Hala. Okay, and I will stop at this. Just remind me when we go to the different types of or the different approaches of how to write an argumentative essay because your point is very interesting. Then we have uh, okay, we have Tahrir uses different types of tools. It's interactive from home or anywhere. These are three positives. Thank you, Tahrir. That's right. Positive because you can take courses from the comfort zone of your home. hmm You know, some people might say, Iman, that it's negative because at home we have kids, we have the TV, the neighbors, you know, the passerbys in the street. All of these are impacting. But your point is great. Thank you. And then we have Shayma, make people closer, especially those who are outside. If you mean abroad, that's right. That's correct. It's negative. It wastes time and money. And this is okay, urud. Okay. It wastes time and wastes money. We can consider them as one reason because it's a waste of resources. Can you think of other reasons why it is negative? Then we move to Sabrine, positive because students can use internet to learn. That's one positive, Sabrine. That's right. Manal, every student learn according to his pace. That's correct. Positive using it from online education, especially during COVID. That's one big positive. That's right. Urud, I think you changed your mind now. It depends on your environment and satisfaction. Iman, that's right. Yes, abroad, that's right. Shema, yeah. Uh, I mean, because you're talking about outside. Positive because it helps us gain information from everywhere. That's a positive. And negative also, it has a bad effect on children. Okay, Shema, that's very interesting point because here, if you don't have an evidence, it will be called a claim. A claim is something that you think is right without an evidence. So when you say it has negative or bad impact on children, yeah, people would think so, but you need to support it. You need to support it because by some evidence, you could say that it has negative impact on children because it makes them lazy, maybe, or any other reason that you can support your argument with. Muhammad says uh, positive because it relates the students to modern technology. That's a good one. Cause here Shema says it cause they imitate anything they saw on YouTube. That's right. But we're looking at using again technology for education, like using Zoom maybe, or showing kids video on YouTube. Okay, so it can be either way. Some of you took the side of positives, and some of you took the side of negative, and some of you wanted to, be in the middle ground. We will discuss how can you tackle these later. Here we have Asma. She says negative because it cuts family ties, it wastes time. People are lazy, people are stuck behind screens, so they have poor eyesight. These can be negatives as well, but also you need stats or statistics to prove that. Its positive lessons are available whenever they want. That's right. That's right, Manan. Also, it's a positive wurud because we use as link between people from any parts of the world. That's right. So it makes it easier to get closer or get in contact with people in different places. Perfect. Now let's move to the second type of essays, and it's an expository essay. And in this essay, when the professor gives you a task or a teacher gives a student a task, he wanted to know that how much the student knows about the topic. So how much you know. So you need to do some research before you write. Also, if you can communicate information clearly, and this is very important skill, as we know. So you know you have your you know something about something, right? But you can't communicate it well. So you're looking at that, and we'll be discussing how we can communicate this well later on. This is an example of a prompt or a question. Explain how the invention of printing press changed European society in the 15th century. So you might know that, yes, it changed it, but you don't know how to communicate it. So just keep watching or attend the next classes, and you will be getting the answer for that. The third type here is a narrative essay. And a narrative essay is they wanted to test your creative language use. So how creative you are, or presenting a compelling narrative. A compelling narrative is very interesting narrative that keeps the reader on their toes, as they say. So the keep the reader reading, and I think you've gone through this experience when you get a book and you started reading the book and you found that you couldn't stop until you finished it, right? So this is a skill. Now, this is one of the prompts here. Write about an experience where you learned something about yourself. Okay, and this is very interesting. If you can start writing about this as an assignment until we reach that, because this will be very helpful. Another type of essays is a descriptive essay, and it's created because they want to test how creative language you could use, how creative is your language or your language use. Also, how you can use or how can you use sensory details. And this is an example. Describe an object that has sentimental value for you. So maybe it's a token or um, a trophy or something that somebody dear to your heart gave you. You can describe it in details, in colors, shape, size. This will be very interesting. So, um, how can we enrich our knowledge of any topic? Read, 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 read. Shayma, this is the answer. Read every day, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. Read on the phone. Read books like paper or hard copies. Okay, reading is the key. We're able to write, but we don't have enough information. So um, you're thinking of reading, oh, sorry, if you're thinking about information about a specific topic, like if you got an assignment in the university, read about it on the internet. So Wikipedia is one of the good resources if you wanted to get a general idea, okay? But if you wanted really to understand the topic, write um, the topic you wanted and then write um, journal articles. Journal article is written by a scholar or a professor, and they write things that are based on evidence. It's not only what they think. Okay, this can be very helpful. What is a creative language? Do you mean, please? So, creative language in the script, we will be discussing it in detail. But generally speaking, a creative language is language that you use when you uh, it's opposite to real language. It's opposite to real life language. So you use it to write a description of uh, something that you imagine, a war or something like that. So using more of um, adjectives and adverbs to create a sensory image, and it's very related to uh, it's part of how you can use words. Like one of the topics I read, it was talking about, I don't know if you guys have read this before. It was talking about red guava. There are two types of guava: the green guava, which is white inside, and the red guava, which is green outside but it's red inside. So the writer was describing every single bit and seed inside the guava when you split it off. So when you read this description, you see red guava yourself, how it's pink from inside, how the seeds are linked together in circles or in shapes. So this is descriptive language. You can consider metaphors as part of descriptive language, because you could compare it to something. You say that it's red like the sun in the afternoon or the sun in the sunset. Yeah, you can use it, or you can use similes. You can use different imageries as well. Okay. We will discuss this in detail, but today we have a bigger one. We have a bigger topic, which is argumentative essay. Argumentative essay presents an extended evidence-based argument. Evidence-based means you have an evidence. It requires a strong thesis statement, and we talked about how can you write a strong thesis statement, a clearly defined stance, a clearly defined position on your topic. So you say, I see it's negative, or I see it's positive, or sometimes you see, I see it could be positive or negative. Your aim is to convince the reader of your point of view. So you take one side and you collect all evidence that can be supporting this side or argument. Okay, so you could use quotes, or you could use you could analyze something in order to prove your point. And the essay is divided into an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So the introduction provides your topic. It provides your topic and your thesis statement, as we mentioned before. In the body, you present your evidence and arguments, and in conclusion, generally you summarize your argument. Okay. Now, these are five. This is one of the forms, which is 5 paragraph essay, and this is generally what we use in our schools. If you are a high school teacher or a middle school teacher, this is what we usually use. So you have a common method for writing the argumentative essay, and it's 5 paragraph approach, and it starts with 1 paragraph as introduction and 3 body paragraphs, and then you go to the conclusion. The 3 body paragraphs are divided into 2 body paragraphs that support your point, given evidence that your stand is right or you support it. And the 3rd body paragraph is where you mention the counter argument. And you need also to refute it or respond to it. Okay? Now, moving on here, we also could find a longer argumentative essay, and this is for university students. Your professor asks you to write about education in the time of technology. Is it negatively impacted or positively impacted nowadays, or COVID impact on education? Okay, so you might think, yeah, this can't be covered in 5 paragraphs. It needs more paragraphs to write. So here you go. This is your answer. If your topic is complex, you tend to have a longer argumentative essay. Okay, and you need to usually give background on the topic before you dig deeper into your argument. So you have your introduction, then you have background, what happened when it happened. If we're speaking about the impact of COVID on people, so you talk about what's COVID, when did it start, how people's life changed it. Then you go to another paragraph and specifically mention how COVID affected education. So you could say that kids stopped going to school, education changed from face-to-face to online. Okay, then you go to a 3rd paragraph where you mention why you think it has a negative or positive impact on education, and then you support it with evidence, which is statistics or analysis. Okay, then you go to another point and another point and so forth and so forth. Okay, so here, just wanted to quickly read this. If the topic is complex, authors may have to discuss the context surrounding the topic, sources of information. Where did you get this? So you say that I got this information from the UN website, maybe. Okay, and their credibility, if they are credible or not. And sources can be credible or not, and this depends on who wrote it. Like, for example, if I write a post on Facebook and put it, can I use this information that was mentioned in a post on Facebook to defend or to support my argument? No. Can I use a website? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on what is written. We have classification or order of credibility. Number one, the top credible sources are the journals. A journal is written by a scholar, and they are reviewed by another person, so it's called peer-reviewed. Peer-reviewed articles are the top in credibility because an author wrote it, he submitted or she submitted to an organization, and they read it through and they find the information is correct and it's based on scientific evidence. Then they give it to someone else to reread it and give feedback on it. So you could see that like 5 people read this and approved it. So this is number one, or top in credibility. But if you're teaching students, like in class, and it's really hard for a student to go and read an article in a journal. You can ask them to collect information from different websites like Wikipedia, or there are thousands of them, or they can Google the information. Authentic sources. That's right, Amina. So it should be authentic, and this is number one or the top of the category. Also, you could also mention in your longer argumentative essay different points of view. Some people think it's negative 100%. Some people think it's positive 100%. Some people think it's in the middle. So you could mention all of these reasons, and then you go to your main point or argument. Okay, on the essay before concluding your, you need to mention these before you conclude your essay. Now we'd like to quickly go to what are the elements of the argumentative essay. How can I know, or how can I say that this is an argumentative essay or not? And I know this today's session is more of a lecture, but you'll have some time to practice that. So you have to have a position, either for or against. And we mentioned this already. So you need to determine which side you are taking for this argument. So, for example, you may be arguing that tobacco products or cannabis should be made illegal. Okay, because here in Canada it's legal. We are using them legally. So you need to make your point, express why you think it is um, uh, harmful, maybe, or why you think it should be illegal. You may also provide exact reason why this happens. Like, why should this happen? Maybe it's from statistics. Maybe it's from a medical journal. So you need to have a position. Number two, you need to have evidence, and you need to get your evidence from outside resources. Usually, it can be, as we mentioned, from citation or references. It should be authentic. The more authentic it is, the better. Okay. So if there is no proof to your argument, if you say that internet is bad for kids, there is no proof on that. You didn't find any proof. So your evidence would not be taken as serious. Okay. So people would say, no, but why do you think that? There is no evidence on what you're saying. Okay. So, for example, you should cite health studies or scientific papers that are related to what you think. Okay. Especially if you're talking about uh, um, health topics like using drugs or using tobacco or addiction or something like that. Okay. The third point or the third element here of argumentative essay is counter arguments. It's not a one person show, as you say. So it's not you only going to say, oh, I think this and this and this and that, and you support it by evidence, and that's it. No, you need to mention other opinions, counter arguments, people who think, no, what you think is wrong. So you need to understand it and look at what they think, and you need to respond to it. So this is where you need to present the other side. Okay, you provide the opposite or opposing argument, as we mentioned, and also you need to refute it. Okay, refute it means you need to falsify it, or you need to make or show how it is weak or false. Okay, it could be valid, but it could be weak. Okay, it shouldn't be always false. It could be true, but it's a weaker argument. So you need to prove that. You need to prove how it is weaker and how it is ineffective. Okay. Now, there are different ways of how to approach our argumentative essay, and we have the first classical approach, where you have an introduction, background of the topic, main arguments, refutation, and conclusion, and that's it. Okay. So in the in the introduction here, you introduce your central message of the paper, as we mentioned, and we repeating this again. So tobacco products can induce various health problems, including cancer, heart attacks, and obesity. This can be our thesis statement. So you can start by a hooking people to the topic, okay, by mentioning a story of your friend who is a heavy smoker, maybe, and then you give back some background information about it. Now you move to a different paragraph where you have background on the topic itself. So if you could see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have like 5 paragraphs. Okay. Here you mention background of the subject itself, where you introduce early studies about the effects of tobacco on people. Okay. And here you need to be unbiased. So you just mention what happened. So in this year they found this and that. In this year they found this and that. So refutation means when you prove the counter argument is false. So let me tell you, or weak. Speaking about the topic of tobacco and drugs, I think it's negative because it affects our health, it affects our bodies. Another person might say, "Oh, yeah, although you think it's unhealthy, I think people should do whatever they want because it's their decision. If they wanted to take drugs, if they wanted to smoke, it's none of your business." This can be another argument. Now you need to respond to that. Okay? Yeah, of course, it's none of my business. They are free to do whatever they want, but what they are doing is affecting us humans or community in a way. Maybe you could say that when they are smokers or they are addicts, they might go get high and attack people in the streets. They might get sick and impact our health system. They might need more resources to take care of them. So you're giving reasons why this argument is weak, why this argument is not strong enough. Okay, I hope this answered the question. Moving to this here, you mentioned the argument, sorry, the background or the history of tobacco and how tobacco affects people and the environment. Maybe here you could also talk about the long-term effect of smoking on children. Okay, then you go to your main arguments, why you think it should be banned. So you talk about the main points of your position. For example, you could write about the feeling of addiction that makes it difficult to give up smoking. Maybe you could also talk about how this feeling affects us, like bodily and mentally. Okay. Then you go to refutation, and this is what we were discussing here. Refutation. Okay, just 1 second. I have a question here. So a refutation is when you mention a reason. That if you're asking about the word refute, means prove something wrong. This is the meaning. But refutation here is, as this example shows, when you mentioned the other argument or the other side, and then you respond to it. So here is where your counter arguments come into place. You introduce the opposite side. You will need to refute as being invalid. So here is an example. Some people think that smoking does not affect health and that genetics are more impactful in causing problems for our health. So some people say, no, no, it's genetics. It's not because you smoke. However, there is minor evidence which shows that smoking can cause higher long-term damage to our lung. So now it's an evidence. Okay, there is an evidence. Evidence here, you're talking about statistics. Okay, then genetic predisposition to cancer. And now after that, you need to give stats. So you say that people who get cancer because of genetics are 5%, and people who got cancer because of smoking are 90%, maybe something like that. So now you refuted this argument. You responded and you made this argument weaker or not accurate enough. Okay. Moving to the conclusion, you present all the main arguments, okay, including yours and the other side, and you provide solution or studies that need to be conducted in the future. So after mentioning all of these and mentioning those people arguments, okay, you should say that, and also, however, some people think so and so, this is not accurate because of, and then you mention your reason. Then you need to come to a point where you mention that, and this is for the university papers, you need to come to a point to prove that we don't have enough evidence, maybe, if there is no enough evidence that your argument is valid or the other argument is valid. Or you might suggest that we need more studies, okay, on the impact of genetics on our bodies, maybe, okay? It depends on the topic, but you need to mention something like that. If you're 100% sure of your topic, something that is like factual, then that's fine. You can say that indeed, or in fact, or in summary, this is my conclusion. You mention why you think again it is positive or negative. Okay. All right. So all of these are the way or how we can approach an argumentative essay using our classical approach. There is another approach which is called Rogerian approach. And a Rogerian approach is when you try to, I think Manel was talking about that, when you try to be in the middle ground, because it's very complex topic. It needs more papers to discuss it. So this can be a different approach to talk about your um, argumentative essay. So this approach works best if the topic of your argumentative essay is very complex or controversial. And for instance, here the issues of global warming. Some people think it's real, some people think it's not. Or if you have a philosophical problem, also, okay, these can be good topics for Rogerian's approach. If there is no specific structure, there is no specific structure for that, okay, that you need to follow, but you need to present both informations, both sides, and you need to be sympathetic with that. So you don't show that you're with one of the sides. You just mention facts. So you say a group of people think that this and this is true because these are the reasons. They could be right because so and so. While another group mentioned that this topic is negative because of these reasons, they could be right because this is their stance. So you just try to be mentioning both sides, and you could again mention your stance, where you stand, by mentioning that those two sides could be true or could be correct in some aspects, and they could be inaccurate in some aspects. However, I think this. Okay, this can be the way, or sometimes you just reach the conclusion that both of them could be correct. Okay, so it depends on how you approach your paper, how you approach your writing. Generally speaking, we've been taught that this is the only way, which is the classical approach, where you mention your reasons, the other reason, and then you conclude. But there is another way, which is this one, and there is a different way, which is going to come in the coming slides. Okay, let's quickly finish this one here. It's important to admit that opposing side may also be valid, as we mentioned. So the more wider scope you have on the topic, the better. And you don't have to solve the issue. It's more important to explore and the compromise, how to make these two sides compromise together. Okay? For example, January 25th revolution in Egypt is an example of that. Some people think, oh, this is the best thing that happened in the history. Some people think, oh, this is the worst thing that happened in the history. Those people have their own reasons, and those people have their own reasons. If you're writing about a topic like that, you need to mention. No, could you please mute yourself? Thank you. And it will be very helpful. It will be very, useful if every one of us has a name. Okay, I understand some people like to protect their privacy, but it will be safer for everyone that we have a name on our Zoom, at least your first name. Okay. You guys have any questions so far? Any question about the Rogerian approach before we move? If you have any question, you can type it. Okay. All right. So which part, Hala? Which part do you want me to repeat? You want me to repeat the Rogerian approach? Okay. Until she responds, we will be looking at the Toulmin approach, and it's very similar to the Rogerian approach. And in this strategy, it's quite useful if it is a controversial topic here. So it aims at finding common ground between the two arguments. It's very similar to the Rogerian, but in this type, you just need to mention facts. So you don't need to say that those people think so and so, but you mention facts about what happened. So if we talk about the 25th revolution, the 25th of January revolution, you could say that people were living very hard life, very poor life. They wanted to get rid of that. On the other side, you could say that people were feeling that it's peaceful, life is peaceful, nothing dangerous happening outside. So you mentioned facts. You don't need to go to and like into details or give more details on each of the arguments. Okay, you just need to mention both sides, their facts about the topic. Let's talk about, for example, drugs. Some people might say, oh, drugs are good because they make people high, they make people relax, so people can get rid of their problems when they go on drugs. Others might say, no, it impacts our society, it impacts our community, people should avoid them. Okay, you just mentioned these. You don't need to take any ground. Okay, you could mention that both of them are correct. Okay, yeah, Asma, that
خلاص.
okay, somebody wants to talk, right? Okay, so for the okay, so the question here, should we write our opinion? If you're using the traditional way or the classical approach, then yeah, write your opinion. Here you can either write it or you can either write both sides, and here you could either get the facts or you could just mention both sides what they think. Okay, it says here, if the topic revolves around the question of whether drugs should be legal, then you should need to explore the biggest issues on both sides. So you say, what are the facts, what happened? Okay, or pros and cons. The pros of making drugs legal is 1, 2, 3. The cons of making drugs illegal, you mentioned 1, 2, 3. In the Toulmin approach, you could mention your opinion, or you could just say these are what people think, and it is a topic of a topic of controversy. Okay, the difference here, an argumentative essay can be just to show the different arguments. Sometimes you don't have any interest in the topic. If I ask you to write about global warming, some people just don't care what's global warming. It's not impacting my life in any way. Or how computer games impact kids. I don't care. Maybe someone who's still young, who's not married, who doesn't have kids, so he doesn't have interest in this topic. So in this case, they would be mentioning both sides, both arguments. Okay. If you are a student in the university, you might be asked to write about a question that you never thought of. Okay, good and bad. What's good and what's evil? Okay, in a philosophical, from a philosophical point of view. Some people are not interested, so they just need to write it, and at the end of the day, they don't need to take a stand or a stand. If they are using the classical way, then yes, mention your opinion. The three types. In the first type, you mention your point, you take a side and you say, I think this is happening. I think fast food is bad for our health because 1, 2, 3. Some people say it makes our life easy, but it impacts our life in from a different side. Okay, this is the classic way. The second way, which is the Rogerian way, some people think it's negative, some people think it's positive. You mention both sides, and then you mention, oh, I lean to this side. Okay, or you say that both sides could be correct because they have their valid reasons. In the Toulmin approach, it's very similar to the first one, but here you usually don't tend to mention your opinion. Okay, so the difference is exactly the difference exactly has something to do with what you think or how you feel about the topic. Yeah, in the first type, in the first approach, we don't mention pros and cons. We just go with what we think. So if you think that fast food is good, you will be mentioning everything that is good about it. If you think it's bad, you would be mentioning everything that is bad about it. So you don't mention pros and cons. In the two types, which is the Rogerian and the Toulmin approach, then you you do that. You mention pros and cons on both sides, and you be sympathetic with both sides, and so on. Jihan, do you have a question?
Excuse me.
Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
this is okay. If it is about only the first one, about only my opinion, so it will be what is the difference between the argumentative and the opinion essay?
Okay. So sometimes they are the same. Sometimes you wanted to give your opinion, then it can be an opinion essay or argumentative essay because you give your argument. Okay. But the argumentative essay is generally broader. So you can discuss something without giving your point, your opinion. Okay. Um, Jehan, let me ask you a question. Are you still unmuted? Could you please unmute yourself?
Okay.
Okay. So the question here is, do you think the increased divorce rate in the United States has negative impact on the community or not? Is this
I
something
have no
that you're
idea.
interested in?
No, it's not. It's something that doesn't interest me.
Perfect. If you're asked to write this question in the university, if you have given this topic, what would you do?
I'm gonna search about some information, but if it's argumentative essay, I'm gonna search about both sides. Or that's what I understand. I'm gonna provide search about both sides, the pros and cons, and also finally I could say which side I support. This is what I understand about argumentative
You
essay.
need
So for
you,
me,
you
I
need to
think
take a
that
side.
the three sides are the same.
Do you need to take a side?
I think.
No, not for with the argumentative essay. So because we're
Mhm.
taught in a different way, we're taught that it's an argumentative essay. Tell me what you think. Sometimes you just showed both arguments. Okay. Sometimes you could read an article in the news, maybe, or in the newspaper, and where you see that an author has talked about something, and they mentioned the arguments about why people think this is correct and why people think that is wrong, and they just conclude this way. They say that this topic will still be a controversial topic in the coming years, maybe, right? So the writer here didn't take a side. They just discussed the arguments here and there, okay? And that's why we mentioned that there are three approaches. The first approach is the one that we generally use, which is a classical approach. That's why they call it classical approach. And these are two different types or approaches, which is the Rogerian and the Toulmin. Okay. Generally speaking, if you want to teach
Okay,
your student
so
in school, you teach
mhm,
them this way because it's easier for them to understand, it's easier for them to absorb, and this
the
is the way
classic one.
we studied when we were in school, right? If
Okay,
you
so
are
generally the first one or the classical one is to just explain both sides. No need for writing my opinion, right?
no, in the classical approach, you take a side and you give background on this side and you mention why your opinion is correct. Then you mention the other opinion and you say the other opinion is wrong because of one, two, three. Then you conclude by
Okay.
mentioning your opinion again. So this is what we can call opinion essay. So you mention your stand here. Okay. In this one,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to mention your
Yeah.
stand. Global warming. Anyone in the Middle East wouldn't care about global warming. Okay. Because it doesn't affect people there. Global warming might be something that
Mm-hmm.
affects people who live close to the ice, because when the ice melts, their lives are in danger, right? So you might be asked to write
Yeah.
about this, so you need to mention both sides. You say, oh, people who live closer to the ice might feel dangerous because one, two, three. Other people think that if we care about global warming, then factories will stop working. Then you would mention the other side.
Uh-huh.
In this one, you don't need to take a side. If you feel really bad
Yes,
about
yes.
people
So
who will
the
lose,
Rogerian is the one to explain both sides.
yeah, that's right. If you feel
Okay.
really bad about
And
one
what
of
about the
them,
third one?
then you could take it. If not, that's fine. This one, the Toulmin's approach is very similar to this one. Okay, and that's why if you wanted to read more about them, I just here as again we mentioned this is an intermediate course. and an upper intermediate course. So we're just mentioning different types. In this type, you just mention both sides, both of the arguments. You don't need to take a side. If you feel like really I take a side, then you could say, yeah, I think that's what should happen. Okay. For this one, you don't really need to take a side. You just mention pros and cons or facts. If these two approaches are confusing for you, you just skip them. I just wanted to include them here because I know that we have many teachers and they would like to know about these. Okay. All right. So moving on. This is a classical approach, and this is how we can write our essay. It's argument. Sorry. First one, we start with your hook, your background information. Write your thesis statement, which mentions your stand. Then you mention the evidence one or argument one, why you think it's true or why you think it's wrong. And then you give, which is in a topic sentence, you support it with facts or statistics or anecdotes. Conclude or write a transitioning sentence. Then you do the same for evidence two and evidence three. I didn't mention evidence three here because we will be mentioning the counter argument, okay, in evidence three. So reason one, reason two, other reason, and you respond to it. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you conclude with your conclusion. Okay. Sometimes you mention your point here, your third point here. Then you mention a counter argument, and then you mention the response to that argument or the refutation for this argument. So it's up to you. This style is okay. So you can change or exchange both of these. And in the conclusion, you mention the main points, okay? And then you give your opinion or suggestion if you have a suggestion for a future studies. Okay, I have a task for you now. I'd like you to start writing a detailed outline, not a simple outline for this topic. Is social media harmful? And this will be our assignment for this week. I read this question here. Thank you, Jihan. Okay, so if you don't remember what's a detailed outline, it's very similar to this. Your introduction, you write what's the hook, what's the background information, what's your thesis, exactly what you need to write. Then you will be changing these into full sentences later. So please take a snapshot or screenshot of this task, and I'll be posting it in the Telegram so we can also work on it for this week. Amina, do you have something to say?
No, thanks.
Right, thank you. All right. So I think we went way over time now. Did we? Oh, it's way over time. That's right. So I prepared some stuff, but I will stop here because we already are very late. Okay. And this will be our next class. Inshallah, we'll be looking at different types of sentence structure and how can we mix or put these sentence structures together or combine sentences together. I need to apologize for you for moving from the other group to this group. Okay. But it's something that we needed to discuss if you want it. I'll stop the recording for now, and then I'll answer all your questions right on.